Welcome to the Scrubs and Stocks podcast, where we talk about everything nursing, investing, and entrepreneurship. This is your host, Ellaine, and I'm here to help nurses like you build wealth, invest, and live your dream life. Welcome back to Scrubs and Stocks podcast. And in today's episode, I want to talk about one of my favorite books called Psychology of Money. And I just got off work, and on the way home, I was listening to a book, which is a different book. It's called Your Life or Your Money. And if you're on YouTube, you can see it over here. It's this one right here. It's Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Brown. And I really love this book, and it kind of reminds me of Psychology of Money. And I wanted to talk about the lessons or kind of takeaways from Psychology of Money, not this book, because I'm not done reading this book yet, but they kind of have the same theme, same lessons, and I want to talk about the key takeaways from the book Psychology of Money. And this book is by Morgan Housel, and there's a lot of lessons in that book, and I really remember reading it for the very first time, and I was kind of shook because it's not like the other finance books that I have read. Instead, it teaches more about what really matters at the end of the day when it comes to money. And so let's get into it. So one of the key lessons for it is that, number one, it's not who earns more but who saves more. And I always tell this to nurses that I teach about investing or teach about money, that it doesn't matter how much you're making if you don't know how to manage your money. I remember making about $70,000 a year as a nurse, and at that time I thought I did not, I wasn't making good money. And then so I ended up moving to a different city and ended up making over $100,000. And then I remember that I was still living paycheck to paycheck, and in my mind I was like kind of questioning, like, I'm making more money, but why is it that like I still don't seem like I got a grip of my finances? And so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much you make, but how much you really invest or save, right? Because people could be making millions of dollars, but if their expenses, if the money that they're taking home and actually keeping and investing is not as much as you would think they would at that high of an income, then it doesn't really matter. And this is why I guess there are some people as well who live kind of like a decent lifestyle and make decent amount of money, not necessarily millions of dollars, and they still retire a millionaire because they're able to save it and invest it. So in the book, Housel really stresses the link between, good investing and living below your means, adopting a humble, frugal lifestyle, and increasing your savings rate. And this is really what's going to make you wealthy in the long run. The second one is that luck and risk are more important than hard work and skills. And I say this with love, and I say this with conviction, that not all success is because of hard work, and not all poverty is because of laziness. And I think that if you are like me, who grew up in a culture where hard work equals money equals success, you're always going to be wired to think that the only way that you're going to be successful in life is by hard work. When in reality, success and poverty are not really solely a result of hard work or laziness. And I think that there's a lot of things that are out of our control that sometimes affects our finances in general. So in the book by Morgan Housel, in the Psychology of Money, he used Bill Gates as an example, and how he was saying that Bill Gates success is influenced by attending a high school with a computer, because had he not attended a school with a computer, he wouldn't have been able to build the Microsoft as what it is right now, right? And there's also a risk in his life where he had a friend who died of an accident. And those two things, like in his life, is what really motivated him and what made him into a successful inventor and investor as he is now. And I also think about how we look up so much to a lot of like great investors in our lifetime, including Warren Buffett. Like I always talk about him, but then most of his success as an investor really comes from not only he has been investing for so long, like decades after decades, like he's been investing most of his life, but he started investing when he was, I think, like I read around 11 or 14 years old, around that time. And if you think about it, like not everybody has the privilege and the luck to be able to be raised in an environment where money is openly talked about, including, like investing. And from what I know, I think that Warren Buffett is actually, he was the son of a U.S. congressman and a businessman, Howard Buffett. So yeah, so that's like luck right there to be born into wealth like early on. And so I think that this is a big lesson when it comes to the book, that just because you work hard does not mean that you're going to be successful. Although like people who work hard can be successful, but sometimes we tie it so much to that by itself that we forget that luck and risk plays a big role in our life as well. And in this, like while we're talking about the luck and risk, is that when we're making investing decisions or just money decisions in general, that it's so easy to convince ourselves that whatever the outcome is, whenever we make these decisions, it's really based and determined entirely by that decision or that action. But that's not always the case, right? There will always be luck and there will always be risk when it comes to, when we make like money decisions in general. So it's really important that we recognize the role of luck and success and the role of risk when we lose money, and we need to really forgive ourselves and leave room for understanding when judging our failures. That's what Morgan Housel said. So try not to be so hard on yourself when you make bad investing decisions, and really just learn from it. The third one is compound interest. And I'm actually going to riff on this because I talk about compound interest all the time and the importance of it when it comes to investing. So compound interest is just interest on top of interest. And I'm going to be a broken record. I'm going to sound like a broken record talking about this because I always tell you all to start investing early, because compound interest will help you compound your money and have it grow into something big in the future. And the reasoning for this is because you're giving it time to gain that interest. And I think that someone who is investing way earlier has a higher chance of being rich and wealthy, even though they have invested less than someone who is starting out late because of that time difference. So if you actually want to learn how to invest and you want to do it now and you want to put into action now, I will be hosting a masterclass on August 24th that you can sign up to. And if you're watching this on YouTube or listening to this on the podcast, I have a special code for you, Invest Ready. And the link is going to be in the show notes. And this is a class where you will learn how to invest as a nurse in the stock market or your money back. I'm going to give you your money back if you don't learn how to invest, because I will teach you everything that you need to know, all the basics, all the 101s in this specific class. So make sure that you sign up for it. So yeah, Morgan Housel also talks about the importance of investing early and the power of compound interest. And lastly, the biggest takeaway that is also in the current book that I am reading, which is Your Money or Your Life, is talking about the difference of being rich and being wealthy. You know what they say, that rich is loud and wealth whispers. So back then, like I used to always strive to be that rich auntie, that rich nurse, but I think ultimately, like, I want to be wealthy. Like, there's a big difference in just having a high income, having a lot of money, having all the designer purses, having a private jet, a mansion, and all that stuff. And the difference of that with being wealthy is having a lot of wealth, having a lot of time freedom, having a lot of money working for you that you cannot really see through the material things that you own. And along that lines of being rich and wealthy is also the real meaning or the true meaning of financial freedom and what it really means to be wealthy and financially free. So there's actually a quote that says the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want is priceless. It is the highest dividend money pays. And so I think that ultimately, like, whenever we all talk about investing and being financially free, at the end of the day, it all comes down and it all boils down to us just wanting freedom. So having that flexibility and really control of how you spend your time is far more valuable than getting more returns in your money, right? If personally for me, I always say that I would rather pick a flexible job over a higher paying job because I value flexibility more. And that is the main reason why I'm still at my current job right now. I know I could be making more somewhere else. I know that I'm worth way more, when it comes to my experience and my time and how I value that in that sense. But I would rather work a job where I can get off work when I want to or when I need to. Like, for example, this morning, I had to drop off my son to preschool this morning. And my son is almost 2. He's too young actually to be in preschool. And sometimes, like, I really have to debate this and talk with my husband this whole thing of like sending him to preschool so early because he just turned 2. And mom guilt, all that stuff, like, which we can talk more about. But anyway, so he has been having a hard time going to school because he always cries and he always like doesn't want to be away from me. He's very attached to me, so I have a hard time every morning dropping him off to school. And this morning he was in the back seat of the car, like he is in his car seat, and I was about to pull up in his preschool, and he was like crying hysterically. As soon as there's a fountain in his school, and then as soon as he sees that fountain, he would cry like crazy. And so he was crying so much that he ended up throwing up in the car seat. And so I was like, oh my goodness, like, it's almost 8 o'clock. I'm gonna be late for work. And so I had to actually message our clinic coordinator, and I told her, you know what, I'm gonna be late for work. My son just threw up, and I have to take the time to actually like drop him off. So it took me a while, like at least like 30 minutes to an hour, like just staying in school, talking to his teacher about how we can make it easier for him and make him adjust to his life in preschool. But yeah, so long story short, like my job right now, I've been with my job for like 5 years now, and it's very flexible. Like I can do this. Like I can tell them I'm going to be late because my son needs me, right? And I would rather pick this job over a job that pays me over $100 per hour or more, and I'm not able to do any of these things. So yeah, so I think I'm at that stage in my life where I really value flexibility over money, time over money. And so yeah, so and that's a good place to be, right? Because at the end of the day, we all want to strive to have our time back. So that is one of the big takeaways in the book. And along with that, I think it's the idea of like, what is true enough for you? What is the true wealth for you? What is the true, like, freedom for you? Because this is something that you have to define yourself. It's something that's very different from someone else. Now, Someone else may pick a higher paying job than a flexible job because they don't have kids, right? So it's important to really think what is your definition of your enough. And I think that that is one of the biggest takeaway of the book. Oftentimes, like, I think that there's always a reason to always strive for more, because having the abundance mindset, there's always a reason to always want to have more. Like, you could strive to be a millionaire, you could strive to be a billionaire if you want. Like, why not, right? But at the end of the day, like, yes, you can strive for those, but what is your enough? And so for this podcast episode, I think, like, with the whole, takeaways or lessons from the book, from the psychology of money, I think what I want you to do is really think about what that enough is for you. What is your why? Because ultimately, everything that you're doing when it comes to money, it all kind of comes down to that why, to that enough for you. Because financial freedom is having enough and then some. It truly is the real definition of financial freedom. So, yeah. So, hopefully, this podcast episode, I know it's a shorty, but I hope that it's helpful for you. And if you want to connect with me, everything's in the show notes. Again, I do have a masterclass coming up. And if you want to sign up for it, everything, all the link is going to be below. And hope to see you in my masterclass. And I will see you guys in the next episode. Stay hydrated, stay invested. Bye.